In this video, I'm going to show you how to create an elastic waist. We're going to start off by creating the casing, then measuring our waist for the appropriate length for our elastic. We're then going to finish the casing to create the elastic waistband. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is measure our waist for our elastic. What you can do is you can use a tape measure and just wrap it around where you feel like it's comfortable for you to wear your pants or your skirt. And I usually do it like right above my hip bone's right here. So I usually do it right above my hip bone. If I go up to my waist, it's a little bit too high. So I'm gonna put it down here. I'm gonna hold myself comfortably and pull the tape measure so I get an accurate reading. And then I'm going to add an inch. This is because we have to sew the ends of the elastic together. And if we don't take into account of that inch, you can make your elastic waistband too tight. So that's why we give a little bit extra. So you can do it that way and get your measurement and then cut a piece of elastic to that length. The other way is you can take some elastic already that's already been cut out, put it around your middle, right underneath your waist, to where it feels like it's a comfortable fit. And then add about an inch and then just cut it. So that's usually the easiest step, is just to cut it right there and there, but it's up to you. So here I have the top of my pants. This could be either done with pants or with a skirt. This is the top portion, and then the legs go this way, so this is the bottom of the pants. This is a side seam here. Now yours may be just one piece. I have an actual separate attached waistband. So you can either have the waistband at the top, or you can just have it where there's no waistband and it's just like this. Either way is fine to creating a casing. The first step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to base the sides of my seam here. So this part is going to be stitched to this part, and just along the edge. And you're just gonna probably, usually it's about 3 inches or so that you're gonna go from the top all the way down to about 3 inches. The reason why you do this is because eventually your waistband is gonna be folded like this to house the elastic. And when you're trying to stick the elastic through the casing, if you don't stitch this down, sometimes the elastic will go right under there and it'll get caught. And you'll have a pretty difficult time trying to get past this point. So if we go ahead and we just baste it, it stays nice and flat, the elastic will go right over it, and that helps a lot when trying to stick the elastic through your casing. So I'm going to go ahead and break out my machine and go ahead and baste both sides. And if you have another side seam on the other side, you're going to do the exact same to that one as well. So I'm going to go ahead and baste both sides of my seam. I'm going to make sure that I only have one layer here and I'm not accidentally sewing the top of my pants together. So I'm going to put this on a base and just fix this a little bit so it's a little straight. And since it's a basting stitch, you don't have to worry about doing a back stitch, because basically all it's doing is just holding these sides down for you to put your elastic in. But once you have your elastic in and you've finished your waistband, you can go ahead and take this basting out. So you can do it in whatever stitching color you want. So I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to do it real fast to the other side. Okay. You don't have to worry about it being too straight. You're just trying to hold that down. All right. So now the next step is in creating our casing. The next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top of my pants or my skirt and I'm going to fold it over. And you'll have to look at your pattern directions. Usually it's 1/4 of an inch or 3/8 of an inch or something like that. Use my sewing gauge to measure that distance. And I'm going to pin all the way around with the same measurement. Once I finish doing that, I'm then going to take this to my ironing, and I'm going to press this nice and flat, because this is when I fold it, we're going to have a nice clean edge with our fold right there. So I'm going to go ahead and do this all the way around and iron it, and then we'll go on to the next step. So I went ahead and pressed the top here, and I've taken out my pins. The next step now is to fold this waistband to the desired length of what your directions say, and it's dependent on the width of your elastic. Mine is about 3/4 of an inch, and they want me to fold it about 1 1/4 inches. So I'm gonna mark my sewing gauge to 1 1/4 inches. And the thing is, what we're gonna do after this is stitch right along this edge here to close off the casing. So you just wanna make sure that you have enough room for your elastic to go in pretty smoothly, because if you make it too small, it's gonna get really hard to push through. But if you make your casing too big, then your elastic could start twisting inside the casing and just causing all kinds of problems. So once your directions tell you what size, like usually I add a 1/2 inch to whatever my elastic is. So if this was 1 inch, I would probably make my casing with, about 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna measure 1 1/4 inches. And again, I'm gonna stick pins into it. And I'm gonna do this all the way around. And then I'm going to press it again. So I have a nice clean press up at the top of my waistband. So here's my waist casing now. Now, before you start sewing, you need to either do one or two things. If you put on a separate waistband and it asks you to leave an area open, here's mine, see how that's open right there? Then what you're gonna do is you're gonna sew all the way around along this edge. If you do not have an opening like this and you just took the top of your pants and you just folded them over so there's no opening right where the seam is, what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna make an X and then measure, I'd say, well, it depends on how big your elastic is. Probably like 1 inch, 1.5 inches. And then you're gonna make another X. So between these 2 points, you're not going to sew. You're going to sew all along the edge starting here and then stop when you get here, and you're going to backstitch and everything. This is the point where you're going to stick your elastic in so you can get it through the case. If you have this type of hole, you don't have to worry about doing that because your elastic is going to go right through the slit right here. So that's why you have 2 different options depending on what your pattern leads you to do. So I have the slit in my seam, so I can go ahead and sew all the way around. So I'm just going to slip this underneath my presser foot here. And you want to go pretty close to the edge. I would say maybe 1/8 of an inch away. And you're just going to do a regular stitch. So mine's a 2.5. And you're also going to do a back stitch. So I'm going to do a couple stitches here, and then I'm going to do a back stitch. Sometimes if your pin gets stuck under there, you just have to put your foot down and lift, your needle down and lift your foot up. That happens to me sometimes. And I'm just going to continue, and I'm going to go all the way around. So the next step after this then is to put our elastic through our casing. And I'm going to show you how to do that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my elastic that I previously cut, and what you need is a safety pin. You're going to put the safety pin through the top of your elastic. and you're going to close the safety pin. And this just makes it easier to grab onto something, to pull it through the casing. So instead of just trying to do it with elastic alone, you now have something hard. And what you do is you take the fabric, you scrunch it on here, and then you pull the fabric across the elastic. So I'll show you how to do that. So if you have your gap here on the edge, you're going to put your elastic up through there and go along like this. If you have a hole in your seam like I do, like this one, you're going to slip your elastic through that hole. And this is where my safety pin is, right here. So like I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fabric and I'm going to scrunch it on here. Then I'm going to take this end of my fabric and I'm going to pull. And I'm going to keep doing this until my elastic goes from one end to the other. Now once I get pretty far along and you have the end of your elastic just starting to get close, a good idea is just to pin it to the end, because you don't want the whole elastic all of a sudden to go through the casing and then you lose the end. You just want to hold on to it, so then when your elastic comes out on the other side, you can then attach the two sides of the elastic, and what we're going to do is we're going to sew them together. So now I'm going to continue to scrunch and pull my elastic with my safety pin attached all through the casing here. So I have my elastic out on my other side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull both of these just to give myself some slack. I'm going to take the safety pin off. And I'm going to get a couple of straight pins. I'm going to overlap these by an inch. So I'm just going to measure this. Make it a little shorter. Okay. And then I'm going to stick my pins in just to hold it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this now to my machine, and I'm going to stitch right here, and then I'm going to stitch another line straight down, and I'm probably about a ½ inch away from that. And I'm going to go back and forth a couple times because I really want to make sure that this elastic is reinforced by a lot of stitches, because once you sew the casing shut, it's going to be really hard to get back at this elastic, and you want to make sure that it doesn't come apart after you have it sewn together. So now I'm going to get out my sewing machine. So I've pulled out my elastic so I have enough give to slip this under the sewing machine. And I'm going to go ahead and do my first line here. So you put your needle down, your foot down, and once you have it down there, you can take your pin out. So you're going to want to make sure to definitely backstitch for this. And even when I get to the end, I'm then going to hit my back button and go all the way back. And then I'm going to go all the way forward and then go back again. Just want to make sure this is a really strong stitch. Alright, so I'm going to take that out. I'll clip those. And now I'm going to just move down about a ½ inch. So here's the overlap here, and I'm going to do it again, just so I have two areas where the two sides of the elastic are attached. I'm going to do the same exact thing. So I'm going to put my needle down, put my foot down, go all the way down, and then go all the way back, front. Oops, I got stuck there. There we go. And just like that. So at this point now we're going to pull our waistband, so the whole part of the elastic now goes into the casing all the way. Our elastic has now been sewn together. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull your waistband and we're pushing this elastic back in the casing all the way around. And you're going to want to distribute your gathering so that it's evenly around the whole waist and it's not just bunched up in one area. Okay, so then the next step, if you had put your elastic from underneath your fold here and you left that little gap, then what you're going to do is you're going to pull your casing, pin it, and then you're going to stitch right along the edge just to finish that up. That's all you need to do in order to finish the casing. If you had a hole in your seam, a gap like I do, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to slip stitch this closed, which means you're going to have to do some hand sewing to close that up so we don't see the elastic anymore. So now I'm going to show you a close-up of how to do the slip stitch. You're going to need your hand sewing needle and your thread with a knot at the end. And the concept of a slip stitch is you're going to go from one side of your fold to the other and just go back and forth in a zigzag manner. But the trick is you kind of want to stay on the underside of each fold. So this is a fold right here and you kind of want to come up underneath, because when you pull your threads you're going to close it and you don't want to see your stitching on top. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start one side and come up from underneath so that my knot is hidden under there. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of the other side just along the fold there. And I'm going to pull, and then now I'm going to go back to my other side. And I'm going to grab a little bit just under the fold and pull my thread all the way through. And this is not a very big hole, so it's not going to take very long to close it. So now I'm going to grab the other side. And you see as I pull it, my hole is slowly closing there. So now I'm going to go on this other side. And then once you get to the end, you're going to very carefully tie a small knot, because we don't want anything so big that it's going to look big and obvious, but we definitely want to tie a knot so the stitching does not come out even if we happen to wash it. And you're just going to go all the way to the end there. And that's how you do a slip stitch. The last step now is to remove our basting stitch that we put in our very first step. So all I'm going to do is carefully remove the basting stitch on either side of the side seam. So I finished taking out the basting stitch, and the elastic waist is now done for my pajama bottoms. So there's the elastic right there. You just want to kind of distribute this gathering here so it's pretty even around the whole waist. But that's basically it, and that's how you do an elastic waist.